in the pain. You know what makes for a railroad game. You can rock, get up on it, and make it step. Get up on it. What the hell? When I get down, I'm singing, shout. Nobody's ever gonna put me up where I. Yeah, that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Down again. You know what I'm gonna say? Reading I love my baby so. Right. She make $5, give me $4. Yeah. Reading I love my baby so. Make $5, give me $4. Reading I love my baby so. Yeah.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What you have just witnessed is the beginning of an operation of lining tracks. Back in the old days, the bygone days, trains, as they do now, knock tracks out of alignment. And there was a group of men whose job it was to put the tracks back in line, and not only that, to keep the tracks in proper working order, in proper shape. These same men, called extra force or section workers, also constructed tracks, and they were first group called out when there was a train wreck or some other accident.
Man, let me tell you something here now. Then we're going to say, see this hump in my back? Got like this, some lining track. See this hump in my back? Got like this, some lining track. See this hump in my back? Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to tell you a little bit about how this project got started. These men here came together back in 1990 to reenact this work that you see them doing.
It's my will, hang on, boys. Is it going again? Got to go to another man. Sit down now. Then we're going to say about it.
I was asked to join the Virginia Foundation local branch, which is called the Piedmont Humanities Council. And one day, one of our members suggested that we do something to save the songs of the railroad workers. So that struck a chord with me because although I didn't work on the railroad myself, I come from 4 generations of railroad workers. And of course, I lived among probably a dozen or more men who actually had done this work. Most at that time were retired in '89. One day it was decided that we might come here on this track and call a group of them together and see if we could find some tools and actually go through the motions.
All right. That's right, I'll Are you right, man? I don't know, but I've been told. Let them be off and go. Hey! Down again, man. Down, come here, and you ready to go? Shoot somebody for your bone. Hey, down.
Word got to several of the news media in the area, and that day we had quite a crowd here, media people.
Lula, don't you know, ain't gonna give your man a no. I heard I'm a baby.
So from that, we got some national exposure, statewide exposure. I received a call early in 1990 asking me about the possibility of bringing these fellows to a rail fair in Sacramento, which was the following year, 1991.
Peg-leg Shorty and Peg-leg Brown. All right. Two men walking with a 1 foot sound. Peg-leg Shorty and Peg-leg Brown. Two men walking 1 foot. Hold on. Move on down the line. Getting on down the line. 15 foot.
This is a lining bar gang.
A lining bar gang.
Lining bar gang. Their work was with the extra force. When we returned from that trip, well, we began to get calls. And we are still getting calls.
Let me know now when the last man sit down. All down. All down? All down. This is what I'm going to say. What are you going to say? Reading I love my baby soul. Right. She make $5, give me 4. Reading I love my baby soul. Make $5, give me 4. Reading I love my baby. Oh, yeah. What did you say to the heat? Beating it on your head. Oh, yeah. I got a girl in New Orleans, the meanest girl I ever seen. I got a girl in New Orleans, the meanest girl I ever seen. Oh. Hey, now.
Really, if you don't see America, you really don't know what it was like the mountains, you know, the valleys, the rivers, you know, it's like that.
We have been as far north as the University of Massachusetts, as far south as Atlanta, Georgia. We've been into Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, many places in North Carolina, Tennessee and Kentucky are some of the favorite places we go.
I like to travel anyhow. See, I mean, when you travel, you can learn this educational, and you can learn a lot, and, you know, you see things where some people say it's not there. You can see it for yourself, and you know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Hey, boys, it's all right. Ain't no need of slacking back. Ain't go home behind this track. Ain't no need slacking back. Hey, go home behind this track. Hey, yeah.
I went to work on a railroad in 1941, about a week or two after Pearl Harbor. You would take groups of men, sometimes 20 and 30, and put them in line down the way there. And a foreman or whoever was lining the track had a good eye. He would stand up the track, probably out of earshot. So you did a lot of it by signals. Forward, back, and right and left, or to the river, or to the hills. And you directed the caller. And the caller would take his bar and move it along the rail. You shut him off. He's at that kink. If he's going too far, stop him right there. That much. Or throw it a country mile. See, that's the way you direct it. In other words, that gang had to be as well disciplined as a football squad. In this process of lining the track, the foreman or the key man or whoever was doing the sight lining would communicate with the lead caller. And he would sing these little two-line ditties in order to get the men together and so forth like that. We'd line all the morning when it's cool. In the afternoon, they'd get those gandy forks and take gravel from the side there and throw it up in there, and that would anchor the track. And that track is ready for service then. And sometimes that section of the track would hold up to 8 or 10 years or more and be smooth.
Hey, doing good. What's that devil go round and around? That's what you just put go down and right.
We're considered a lining bar gang, which is only one facet of the work that we did do. And that spiking, I was crazy about that spiking.
Hey!
Stewart Horsley over in Indiana, he taught us both to spike. Well, you drive one of them spikes there in that hard oak there, you got to put a little bustle on it. And what you're doing, you're letting the rebound from the hammer make that circle. When it gets over there, and when you get coming down, you hunch it, and that puts the power to it. So you get the rhythm of it there, you can do that all day long. A young farmer coming in, he's got all the muscles and stuff like that, he can turn around and do that cornfield lick and get that thing down, but he's not going to do it very long because the friction from the handle is going to blister him up.
Hey, chicken in the pot, chicken in the pan. Think of what it means for a railroad game. This is right. Get up on it. Get up on it. Let's go!
Mostly in the wintertime, they would be cutting ties. You cut it down and then you measure 8 foot 6 inches and you layer a ½ inch. So when you sew it on each end, you still have 8 foot 6 inches. And then you had a rule where you mark it 6 inches wide. Then you take your broad axe and line that tie off on each side, and then you come back and chop it or score it. If it's a large tree, you cut a score. If it's a small tree, you just chop it, chip it they call it. Then you come back with the broad axe and hew it, and you saw it off 8 foot 6 inches and bark it. And that's your tie. I think we used to get 50 cents for the small one, 75 for the larger one wouldn't be 75 cents.
This is in the early 30s, right?
Early 30s.
Yeah. As time went on, they got a little higher.
They got higher. They got up to high as the large one would be $1.90. Harry Morris and I, we did get 24, and I told him let's make it 25.
Yeah, that was 49.50. One time there, because you got you on tape there with that discussion. One time y'all did almost 50.
Yeah.
And they were unusually good axemen, and so that's kind of unusual for a day's work for two men. Sometimes a wagon would carry about 10, 15, 20?
10, 15.
And I remember on Tom one time, the cop pulled him over one time for carrying 60 tires on a wagon.
Yeah.
He was just cutting the top.
Yeah.
Cutting the twigs was just breaking the tar.
Breaking the tar right up. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you pull that thing over and unload it.
He dogs on him. Yeah, you hear the dog, cluck, 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 cluck. Dogs on him, man. Say, raise them, get close by the head.
And sometimes they had to carry that rail, which is, in most cases, about 1,800 pounds.
That's right.
Sometimes they had to carry it up a 20-foot bank.
That's 20-foot bank.
So
you see, when he raised up,
you got to coordinate 16 men to carry a 1,800-pound rail. Well, he'd call it in such a way, he called it cadence.
He said, dogs on the man. Well, everybody sit down. He clack, clack. And when he said, raise up, get close by the head, look where it was. You didn't put it down until he got up there.
Yeah.
Bam. Then when he said, close by the head, just sit down. And he said, on the bed, everybody tighten. Bam. In the bed, bam. Joint back, bam. That would get everybody to pull at the same time.
We had to go from here to you up a steep bank. Sometimes they'd stop it halfway. And when it said jump it, the man would call it, and you stop it. Everybody sit down, catch a break, and go to the end. And here you take 15 other men pushing the rail at the top speed. It was called jumping rail.
Yeah.
It was a very dangerous job. And the railroads generally outlawed it. But during the war, we did some of that jumping because manpower and machines were scarce.
How it come to be outlawed, my daddy told me, said they was jumping the rail one day. And jumped the rail, they had a new man in there. Just like he said, backing up. And this new man slacked on his tongue. And you set the rail right across the man's stomach. And when you set it right across him, so the man now, well now, when the rail went down, well, they killed him then. Well, now they had to stand right there until they got a man to come from Richmond to investigate exactly how that man got killed. And right there, they said, jump no more rail. Well, now the section gang, they had 5 miles, about 5 or 6 men, and they had 5 miles of rail that they would check over. And all the men within walking distance of the track that they could hear the train blow, and they would come down there and they get on that section and they maintain that part up and down in that hole, kept everything perfect, grass cut and everything right in place. That was just a regular section crew, and they stayed in that part for years. But the extra folks moved about. Well, the big job was, they moved about for miles and miles.
The men lived out on the tracks in campfires. They were away from the wives and sweethearts. And so naturally, most of their songs were about the ladies. And we also want you to know that these songs you'll be hearing, most of them are not in their original form.
Look here, boss. You don't need a calling home, because Jody got your gal and gone. You don't need a calling home. You don't need a calling home. Jody got your gal. Oh, yeah. Sit down, man. This is what I'm going to say now. If I had a needle and thread, what you doing? The way I would sew. All the women to my coattail and down one. If I had a needle and thread, the way I would sew. All the women to my coattail and down the road I go. If I had a needle and thread.
When them boys got it and got the line and track, and it's hot and they're bad, pretty a long way off, boy, you could hear some noise out there.
These men, when they worked out on the tracks, because of the laws of Virginia at that time and the union contracts of that time, these men were not permitted to hold supervisory positions, no matter how well-rounded they got or how competent they got in work of lining tracks. And actually, our chief caller here, Mr. Johnson, was actually a foreman trainer. That is, he trained foremen who later supervised him.
Hey, you want, Cap? Look at the captain laughing. Cap, I wasn't going to fool with you, but you laughed and I'm going to jump on you. That's what I'm going to say. Look at the boss, how he stands. More like a farmer and a railroad man. Look at Captain, how he stands. More like a farmer and a railroad man. Look at Captain, how he stands. Oh, he stands. Is he going again? He got to go to another man. Lay down now. That's what I'm going to say about it. Captain can't read. Captain can't write. I can tell when track is right. Captain can't read. Captain can't write. I can tell when track is right. Captain can't read. Captain can't write. Oh, is that?
You know what I'm saying? Don't my cabin treat me mean. Don't give me time to eat my beans. Hey, boys, it's all right. Don't my captain treat me mean. Don't give me time to eat my beans. Don't my captain treat me mean. Don't give me time to eat
This work,
my beans.
as the track maintenance workers, was done about the country by the underclass. Now, in the South, it was blacks. Out in the Southwest, Mexicans, Indians. In the North, the immigrants, particularly the Irish, the underclass did this work. But for blacks, this was railroad work was a big thing. And
I don't know, but I've been told L and empty. What? the boss in me. Hey! Oh, yeah.
My dad, was making 90 cents a day when he first went to 1913. When I went there, they was getting $3.15 in 1941. And 41, 42, 43, my daddy was 80 cents a day. But back in those days, the money was real short that they got.
And I can remember working for 30 cents an hour at age 15. That was 1945. There was talk of an unbelievable hourly wage on its way. 60 cents an hour, penny a minute. That was unheard of.
When I went to work on the railroad, that's what they paid me, 60 cents an hour, $4.80. And it was frozen at that. So for the duration of the war.
When they got to $3.15, they was making big money then.
But you must remember now that 60 cents an hour we were making at that time had much more buying power than it does now.
Yeah, Lord.
In other words, at 60 cents an hour can compare very favorably with $8 or $10 an hour now.
That's right.
Railroad was about the best wage you
Best
could get.
wage you could get at
Up and down this James River Valley.
That's right, was the best wage you could get.
Even back there in our time there, in the late 30s there, well, of course the Depression had cheapened everything, but farm labor in, what, did it get $1 a day back in 39?
No.
Well, it was
75 cents,
something like that.
cents a day.
Reading my gal, look so sweet. She won't eat nothing but bullfrog meat. Read my gal, look so sweet. Won't eat nothing but bullfrog meat. Read my gal, look so sweet. Oh, he said, hey. Down there. Let me tell you what we're going to do it all again. Up and down the road I go. Men shooting, I ducking and dodging 44. Up and down the road I go. Men shooting, ducking and dodging 44. Up and down the road I go. Oh, yeah.
I'm also one of the few people still alive that witnessed that wreck of the German prisoner of war train over at Shadwell in September 43. That was quite a thing there. I'll never forget that one. We had 70 men in that cut. We had a whole extra force and all the crews we could get in there. It was rushing and get that track in there and put that frog in there and that extra main line. And we had a slow order on the track while we put the frog in, put the switch in. And when a guy gets in his cab at Newport News, his orders are read to him. And he's supposed to read them back. Then he puts them in his pocket. When he gets up to Gordonsville there, his orders are repeated. 4 miles east of Charlottesville, 15 mile per hour slow order. I was out there taking my tally of my men, and I happened to look up there towards Shadwell, about 1.5 miles away. Maybe 1.25 miles, it wasn't 1.5 miles. And I saw this steam jack coming, Pacific. And the way that steam was laying across the river, I knew he was rolling. And I knew he wasn't going to make it because he was going so fast that it takes 1 mile for to stop a train. And I knew he wasn't going to make it. So I started hooping and hollering and getting the men out there. And the boss, he started hollering the other way and getting them out there. And we got everybody out there. We had about 10, 20 seconds there for to do it. And I was about the last one to leave the track. And just as I went up over the hill up there where Luckstone car is, I went up over the hill. One of them pullman slammed into the back there right below my feet. And I looked down there and the engine went up there, right there where that switch was, soft. And he hit that, he must have hit it. He was in emergency, but it bowed the soft track down in the ground and flipped in and went in right behind the river. So I go down there and I got to call a couple of men to me and we cut and lifted the engineer out of the cab. Old long drawbar across there. And when I took his hand off the throttle bar, his fingernails and all this was an amber glove that stayed there. And we carried him out there and laid him on the grass there and laid him down, tried to ease him there. And he was a strong man. He got up. And my boss run up to him and said, man, what the hell you come down here like that for? Would you have a slow on that track? And he said, I didn't have no slow on, and his teeth started dropping out. Steam explosion. And he put his hand on his head there, and his hair just came out, just like a skull hog. His skin was the color of parboiled beef. And, well, he had his orders, because I searched his pocket and got him out there and rid him to the captain. I believe he was just like everybody else during wartime. He was worked to death. And he was been going over this section of track every day of the year, and he just forgot about it. Almost dozed off. Of course, we'll never know, because the poor guy, he died within 15 minutes, and the fireman died in 45 minutes. He was about 4 or 5 feet up in the air on some bushes where that 25,000 gallons of water out the tender had washed him up there. And the water went away, and he was up there in the bushes. But you start, the MPs, it was Gardner's business. It was 315 of the Romance men, young boys. And they'd been captured in North Africa, and they were sending them out to the orchards to work. And these MPs jumped off there, and they had these here rising submachine guns. They're a cheap version of the Tommy gun. And they just jumped off and run up the hill, formed a perimeter, and looked back. And, you know, they're supposed to be containing the Germans, you know. Them boys won't go nowhere. Them boys are as happy as they could be. They was out of the war. Mm-hmm. But that time I had to leave there to come to Scottsville to get Billy Frame. But when I got back there, there was about 4,000 or 5,000 people up on that hill. And old Gene Miller was down there calling to track that man, and them people were up there, man, amazed to see all this stuff. He was putting on a show. I've enjoyed going around different places and meeting a different class of people than you generally would ordinarily meet. And we've learned a lot. And you know, we might have taught a lot, we've learned a lot too. We've been to colleges and universities and stuff like that, and talked to some of the seniors and their crowds from east to west, north and south. It's kind of broadens you a little bit. And it's always interesting. And the people are very nice to us. Treated like movie stars in most places.
It's a thrill to me to have someone come up and ask me about the knowledge of the work on the railroad that I've experienced. I was a freight conductor, passenger conductor, and trainman, and I know everything about making up trains, breaking them down. I've been with these guys for maybe 4 or 5 years, and I'm enjoying it. I hope it never stops.
We did some shows up in Mr. Connecticut during that flood they had up there the other year. And it was really interesting to talk to several of those old seamen that really had been windjammers. So I could swap some stories with them, and they could swap some stories with me, and we had a fine time.
One of the things that I remember most is seeing men who once did this work being wheeled up to watch us, and to see some of them wiping tears.
Run together now. Go on down. Let me know when you say out, man. Oh, yeah. All right, Captain. All right. Go into the river. Down, man. Down. Way down yonder on my knees. Lord, I heard a keep his feet way down yonder on my knees. Oh, yeah. Back up on the All right. Listen what I'm going to say. Sit down, men, pick up strong. Payday coming, it won't be long. Sit down, men, pick up strong. Payday coming, it won't be long. Sit down, men, pick up strong. Now, ho, he said. Sit down, man, let me tell you why now. Let me tell you why now. Hand me down a quarter cone. I'll get drunk to show you bone. Hand me down a quarter cone. I'll get drunk to show you bone. Hand me down a quarter cone. Oh, and we're going to say, Mary, Martin, Luke, and John, all them good folks dead and gone. Mary, Martin, Luke, and John. Oh, yeah. Just a little bit more. Amen. What the hell? Let me know when you say amen.